and Israelis and Lebanese have been worrying about for the past 10 months. Is this the trigger for an all-out conflict?
At the Olympics,
1 step, 2 steps, up in the air, 2 twists.
the most decorated gymnast of all time, Simone Biles, makes her return. Turkey's parliament considers a mass cult to control 4 million stray dogs and funerals.
In the wake afterwards, you will always hear people say, oh, they would have loved this, only they were here, they would have really enjoyed this. So this gives them the chance to be part of that and actually enjoy it.
Trent was holding them before you died.
Hello, I'm David Hall. The Venezuelan opposition has alleged widespread fraud in counting votes from Sunday's presidential elections. The spokeswoman for the opposition coalition, Delcy Solosa, said the electoral authorities had stopped releasing some results.
They are expelling our observers from a large number of polling stations. The election authorities have also stopped publishing the official vote counts from individual ballot boxes in many polling stations.
President Nicolas Maduro is seeking a third term in office. His campaign manager says that when the first official results are announced, the government's victory will become abundantly clear. Opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez says the turnout was much higher than in previous elections. The government has previously dismissed concerns of fraud or intimidation during the vote. A meeting of Israel's security cabinet, convened by the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has authorized him and his defense minister Yoav Gallant to decide on the timing and manner of the response to a rocket strike in the occupied Golan Heights on Saturday. 12 other people were killed in the attack. Israel has blamed Hezbollah and vowed retaliation. Iran has denied the involvement. The BBC's Mark Lowen is in Jerusalem.
There is a huge amount of international pressure on both sides at the moment, coming from the US, from France, from the United Nations, from the European Union, on both Hezbollah and on the Israeli government, not to allow this to escalate into a full-scale regional inferno, if you like. Hezbollah is the most important Middle East proxy of Iran, and so a full-on confrontation with Hezbollah risks bringing in Tehran, risks spreading this into a much wider regional conflagration. So that is what all the international mediation attempts are focused on.
High-profile former cabinet minister in Britain, Sarah Lavin, pulled out of the race to lead the opposition Conservatives. She said there was no point in running when most of the party's leaders disagree with her. She said the Conservatives had lost the general election earlier this month as of failures on immigration and taxes and what she called transgender ideology. South Africa's governing ANC Scotia former President Jacob Zuma, who for 7 months had been defected to lead another political movement, and failed reports.
The ANC's disciplinary committee concluded that Mr. Zuma had prejudiced the integrity of the movement when he signed up to lead the newly formed MK party last December. The committee announced he had been expelled from the party he joined as a teenager in the late 1950s. The former president has 3 weeks in which to appeal. Mr. Zuma's new party won 14% of the vote in South Africa's general election in May. It helped to prevent the ANC from winning a majority in parliament for the first time since the end of apartheid 2 decades ago.
Italy's Prime Minister, who's on official visit to Beijing, has signed a 3-year economic plan with China. Georgia Meloni made the announcement during a meeting with the Chinese Prime Minister Li Qiang. She said she wanted to relaunch cooperation with China in new fields like electric vehicles and renewable energy. An international team of scientists said they found new evidence to back up their theory that complex life on Earth began 1.5 billion years earlier than previously thought. The team analysed sediment taken from deep inside the rock formation in Gabon in Central Africa. Gina Rao has the details.
This theory is a big departure from conventional thinking. Most experts agree that animal life emerged 635 million years ago. But this team say they detected an explosion of the nutrients needed for life, including oxygen and phosphorus, 2.1 billion years ago. They believe 2 continental plates collided and caused underwater volcanic activity. This made an environment that could support life similar to slime mold, a brainless organism that reproduces with spores.
Jordan has welcomed the inclusion of a village dating back 2,000 years in the UN Cultural Organization's World Heritage List. The tourism minister said UNESCO's decision to list Al-Jamal was a great achievement and a source of pride. as well as preserving structures from the Byzantine and the Islamic periods. Al-Jamal contains inscriptions in ancient languages. An Australian surfer whose right leg was bitten off by a great white shark appears to have confirmed that surgeons were unable to reattach the limb, which was washed up on the beach last week. The 23-year-old surfer, Kai Mackenzie, was attacked by a 3-metre great white shark off the New South Wales coastal town of Port Macquarie last Tuesday. He managed to fight it off and get to shore. He posted a photograph of himself with friends and family today, with a comment below the pictures asking, "Spot something missing?"
Hello, this is Alex Ritson with the newsroom. Western diplomats and politicians are scrambling to de-escalate tension between Israel and Hezbollah following Saturday's rocket strike on the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, which killed 12 young people. As fears grow of a major war, they're urging Israel to show restraint in any military response. The Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, held a 4-hour emergency meeting with the Security Cabinet late on Sunday. Earlier, the White House also blamed Hezbollah for the attack. It denies responsibility, claiming a projectile from Israel's Iron Dome defense system hit the town of Majdal Shams. The victims of Saturday's attack belonged to the Arabic-speaking Druze community, a distinct religious and ethnic group that makes up 1.5% of Israel's population. Earlier, the funerals took place for the children who lost their lives. Our correspondent Paul Adams spent the day in Majdal Shams.
A really profound sense of grief and shock that has descended on this small Druze community in this rather remote corner of the country. This is the Golan Heights, which has been under Israeli control since 1967. This is a community that is very tight-knit, that clings to its roots, a place where people have not left, despite the large evacuations that have gone on elsewhere across northern Israel in the last 10 months. The Druze community here in the Golan has stayed put. But of course they have feared all along that something like this could happen. And sure enough, it has. And it has left them absolutely stunned. Here's just a flavour of what today has been like. Through the streets of Majdal Shams, the coffins came one by one. This town is reeling in shock, consumed by collective grief. For months they feared the disaster. They never imagined it would take away their children. At the football pitch where they died, people came to pay respects and take in the scale and speed of this tragedy. The playground transformed in an instant into a place of jagged metal, discarded belongings, and in the corner, the blood of the victims. As government ministers arrived, the mood turned. There was anger, even from a soldier. They've been bombarding us for 10 months, he shouted. My children are crying every day. Israel's hardline finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, was here. Some urged the government to crack down hard on Hezbollah. Others told him, in no uncertain terms, to leave. Ugarit Abu Awad knows a response will come, but is deeply fearful.
But I don't think there should be an all-out war. More people are gonna die on all sides. Humanity is already suffering.
The Security Cabinet has been meeting to discuss things. What kind of response might be expected?
This is a difficult calculation. This is the moment that many people, diplomats and Israelis and Lebanese, have been worrying about for the past 10 months. Is this the trigger for an all-out conflict? Something much bigger than the simmering tit-for-tat exchanges we have seen for the past 9 or 10 months. There are no immediate signs of a large-scale military operation. We're not seeing the mobilization of troops, the massing of armor on the border. A sign of an invasion of southern Lebanon, despite the Israeli government's keen desire to create some kind of buffer zone in southern Lebanon that would prevent Hezbollah from being able to launch rockets into Israel. But as you say, the Security Cabinet has been meeting, and the statement that was released following that meeting said the members of the Cabinet authorised the Prime Minister and Defence Minister to decide on the manner and timing of the response. No clues there. I think everyone is expecting some increased level of Israeli military activity. Whether it will amount to the kind of full-scale escalation that people fear, well, we just don't know. An escalation on this border could have all sorts of ramifications, could worsen the conflict in Gaza, could wreck prospects for ceasefire talks there, could draw Iran further back into this conflict. There are all sorts of implications, all of which are pretty dire.
Paul Adams in the Golan Heights. To Venezuela, where votes are being counted in the presidential election, it was largely a race between Nicolas Maduro, who's seeking a third consecutive term, and the opposition candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez. Although experts have voiced concern the election isn't free or fair. Results are expected shortly. Our correspondent, Ione Wells, is in Caracas. Ione, what's the latest?
Well, the opposition and the government have been speaking this evening as we're still awaiting the results of the election. The opposition have accused the governing party of fraudulent behaviour. They have said that their witnesses haven't been allowed in certain counting stations and in the official electoral council. They've also said that part of the problem has been that some of the sort of paper receipts that come out of the electronic voting machines haven't been now passed on physically to the electoral council, just the electronic results, which they argue could leave the results more open to be tampered with. So there's quite serious concerns and allegations being made by the opposition already this evening, even before a result has been announced. The government, on the other hand, have been speaking to. We've heard from a spokesperson of President Maduro's campaign saying that they are confident in a win and that will become clear when the results are officially out. But we still, as I say, have not heard yet anything official from the electoral authorities. It is worth saying that the electoral authorities in Venezuela are controlled and run by President Maduro's party and the government, so that is one of the reasons why the opposition are going to be very sceptical about any official results that is announced later this evening.
So what will happen if the opposition dispute the result?
Well, that is certainly something which we don't yet know the answer to, but it could range from anything from sort of very public challenges to protests like we saw back in 2018 when the result then was also widely dismissed as neither being free nor fair. At the moment, as I say, we're in a slight holding pattern. We're watching sort of crowds of some of the president's supporters gather at the moment, awaiting the results. But similarly, the opposition have said to all their supporters to stay in the polling stations and stay at the counts until results are announced. They're wanting people to take part in a sort of official verification process as much as is possible. But it is really unclear at the moment what is going to happen next, and also, as you say, how the opposition will choose to react if they don't recognise the results of this election. There is also a bigger question there as well too of how the international community decides to respond after they didn't recognise the last elections as being free or fair, and they also, as a result, didn't recognise the government officially. So I think there are lots of unknowns about how this will play out, but certainly at the moment what everybody's waiting for is some official numbers being put out by the electoral council.
Ione, thank you. Ione Wells, we will send this story and update you as soon as possible. If you walk down the street in Turkey, it's only a matter of time before you spot a strange look. They've been a neighbourhood fixture there for centuries, but that may be about to change. The Parliament is debating a controversial law that could lead to mass culling of the animals. Anna Aslam reports.
Millions of dogs roam the streets of Turkey, which the government says is a problem. A new law would allow the killing of stray dogs that aren't adopted within 30 days, and those who are sick or deemed to display negative behavior. The fine for abandoning pets would also rise 30-fold. President Erdogan says it's necessary to control the population of stray dogs that he says have become a menace to society, attacking people, causing accidents, and spreading disease. But the legislation has sparked nationwide anger and emotive arguments in Parliament. MPs were seen jostling one another and exchanging insults, opening another deep divide in an already fractured political landscape. Some local authorities have said they will apply the law even if it's passed, and animal rights activists have described it as inhumane, calling instead for sterilization programs. A recent opinion poll shows nearly 80% of the public supports measures to take dogs off the street, but less than 3% believe collected dogs should be euthanized.
People could be as well intentioned as they want, but this law has loopholes. The gaps need to be filled before it's put into practice.
Those who governors should know this well. Please don't play politics over animals. Please don't. It's not
Despite the nationwide uproar over the legislation, it's expected to pass in Parliament later this month.
Anna Aslam. You're listening to the newsroom from the BBC World Service. Still to come, the Marvel universe has been on the slide, but can a returning star change its fortunes?
The idea of Robert Downey Jr. coming back, the first star, the guy who started it all at Marvel Studios, is this idea that we might return to form.
But first to the Olympic Games in Paris, where the action on day 2 came so thick and fast, it was hard to keep up. Here's Alfie Abersham with the highlights.
And here she is starting her qualification on being the piece. It's not easy to be the centre of attention in a room with Tom Cruise, Lady Gaga and Ariana Grande, but the whole of Paris appeared to hold its breath as a sparkling crystal figure tiptoed onto the edge of a large mat.
Opens with the big change leg mount and then into the leap series. Pike back somersault.
Simone Biles returned for her first Olympics since Tokyo when she pulled out due to mental health problems, and her limbs were tucked into unknown angles as she flashed across the floor and over the beam so fast you could blink and miss it.
Unbelievable dismount. 1 flip, 2 flips, up in the air, 2 twists, 1 wave somersault. 1
Snoop Dogg certainly didn't, lifting his sunglasses as his eyes appeared to lurch out of their sockets. She's already the most successful gymnast of all time with 23 gold medals, and the USA will be hoping she can add another after a dazzling qualification. And something's definitely in the water in Paris, and I don't just mean the pollution in the River Seine that's caused the triathlon training to be cancelled, but also a feeling of comebacks.
So he's starting to wind it up in the centre here. This is looking good. Also with his feet to the back to the USA.
Team GB's Adam Peaty was cruising towards a record of 3 Olympic goals in a row in the 100-metre men's breaststroke, when Italian Niccolo Martinenghi finished before him by just 200th of a second. And France's Léon Marchand put the host back in the headlines by breaking Michael Phelps' record in the 400-metre individual medley. Meanwhile, the clay courts of Roland Garros were dusted off for an old friend, Andy Murray. The 37-year-old was supposed to be retiring, but said last week he'd come back to Paris for one last go. His worst fears looked to be coming true when he and doubles partner Dan Evans were creaking towards defeat against Japan's Taro Daniel and Kei Nishikori. But then, somehow, the pair withstood 5 match points and won.
Who rises first?
Even he looked like he couldn't believe it, nor could his mum Judy, who admitted she was working out which flight to catch home when watching on in the stands. But she said her son is someone you can never write off. Having said that, age and experience isn't everything, because what were you doing when you were 14?
Oh, yes! There's the hurricane to see it off!
Well, Koko Yoshizawa will certainly be the talk of the school playground after grabbing gold in the women's skateboarding street final. Her kickflips take Japan to #1 in the overall standings.
Alfie Abersham, and you can hear regular coverage of all the Olympic action here on the BBC World Service every weekday on Sport Today at 18:30 GMT and on Sports World from 13 hours GMT on Saturday and 14 hours on Sunday. Today, a record number of children in sub-Saharan Africa are enrolled in school. According to the UN, 90% of students under the age of 10 still struggle to read and understand simple text. One country that has recently invested massively in education is Zambia. But what difference has it made? Laila Mohammed has been investigating.
Since 2021, Zambia has spent over $1.5 billion in making primary and secondary education free.
Without free education, I don't know how my parents would have managed to take me back to school.
18-year-old Mariana is one of 2 million students who's been able to return to education. But the opportunity of free learning has also created new challenges.
I'm at Chinyanya Junior School, about an hour's drive south of Lusaka. Here, free education has brought hundreds of children back into the classroom in such a short time. This has created challenges
education teacher at Chanyanya.
When I started, I had at least a smaller number, 40, but this time around it's 105, 80, 90, and that's just one class. It's a challenge. Even matching, we have even reduced even the number of subjects that we are giving them.
Many students have to sit on the floor because of lack of desks, which has a negative impact on their learning. The government in Lusaka says it's listening and it's taking steps to address the challenges of free education.
This is a good program.
Mr. Douglas Siakalima is the education minister in Zambia.
I'd rather let the children in a congested classroom rather than in the streets. What the president did was increase mass production of desks. Mass infrastructure building is happening.
The Zambian government has hired more than 37,000 teachers in 2 years. But with Zambia still recovering from a debt default, some experts have cast doubt over the sustainability of the free education policy. The Minister of Education says he is confident they can bear the cost.
Laila Muhammad. There's a comic Irish folk song called Invitation to a Funeral, which ends with the line, "Never go to funerals until the fella dies." The joke doesn't always work these days, because a number of terminally ill people are choosing to hold so-called living funerals before they die. Why? Get the views of some people here in the UK.
Our son passed away in November last year after a 2.5-year battle with leukemia. He was a week short of his 34th birthday when he passed. He had the terminal diagnosis, so he decided that he wanted to have a living funeral. He wanted the chance to say goodbye to friends and family and for everyone to celebrate his life.
The living funeral is for the patients. I don't know about you, but I've been to many funerals, sadly, and in the wake afterwards, you will always hear people say, "Oh, they would have loved this, if only they were here, they would have really enjoyed this." So this gives them the chance to be part of that and actually enjoy it. They say their own eulogy, they reflect on their life, the good, the highs, the lows. It is more about that celebration of their own life and having that final party that they'll ever have.
I had breast cancer, which metastasized to my brain, and then I was given months to live. I didn't want to have a funeral where I wasn't involved in it. I wanted to say a really fond farewell to all the people I loved and the people who loved me. I wanted to be there and share how peaceful I was feeling. It was so emotional, and I just got to hear how people truly felt about me, and it was so special. There were songs, A Little Help from My Friends, which was very pertinent to me, but it was the Joe Cocker version.
She's doing all these promotions. If you don't know who the Hut Tour girl is, I'm sorry, but we can't go into it. But everyone knows who she is, but we're not allowed to talk about it. Anyway, the Hut Tour girl, she's gone on a sort of American tour, and this is the thing I mentioned the other day. She was introducing these two musicians at a festival, and she was greeted with absolute stony silence. And when someone was interviewed off to the audience, and they asked them, "Why aren't you cheering for me?" They just said, "Oh, she's so June." Now you're out of date by a month. She's so June, they said. It's July now. Right, Jeremy in Pearton. What do you want to say? Please.
One way or the other.
Absolutely.
I haven't got into the Olympics yet.
You haven't? Okay.
I'm waiting for it to happen.
Really? Nothing sort of caught your eye yet?
No, I've been too busy, I'm afraid.
What have you been busy doing, Jezza? What have you been busy doing?
Painting, I paint pictures, all sorts of things at the moment, yeah.
Okay, well good luck with it, and thanks very much for listening, and please try and get into the Olympics if you can. Bill says, morning in, Adam Peaty, brilliant. He's come back from adversity and personal issues, 25 milliseconds from goal, says Bill in Appleton. Absolutely right. You watch the Biles? I love it, because if you watch the documentary on Netflix about the problem with the jewelry that she's had, and the fact that she completely flunked out during the last Olympics, and I thought, well, is that how she's going to say goodbye to sport? One of the, if not the greatest gymnasts ever. And she was like in bits about it, because all she got to think of, I don't know if she got to think of the twisties, where you're in the mid-air and you're God knows how many feet in the air, she's spinning and twisting and diving and ducking and piking, and she then loses a sense of where she is to the and it's like really dangerous because you're high up, and if you land on your neck and you don't know, that could be it. So she kind of pulled out and all the rest of it. And then what I loved in the documentary was she was talking about the armchair critics, and then there was an example of these two guys both doing like what they do a radio talk show, and they're opinionated like we all are on everything, particularly when it comes to sport. There was two in particular, massively overweight guys, struggling to get their tummy off the desk, saying things like, oh, honestly, she's just let the countries down, and she quite sensibly makes the point. I said, these are two people who I guess have never even jumped 2 foot in the air, let alone 17, which is what she'll be doing when she's tumbling. And she's quite right. I think if you're famous, you've got to try and block all that out, but it's impossible, isn't it? Because I guess she's got to that stage where she's trying to block it all out. She doesn't want to watch this, she doesn't want to watch that. But her mates all start ringing her up. I learned yesterday a fun fact. Australians didn't invent. Oh, very good, Carl. Carl's doing some jokes. Australians didn't invent thongs, beach footwear. They were actually invented by 2 French guys called Philippe and Philot. Very good. There was another one here I saw. No, too many texts and I've lost that one. What